Gaslighting is okay, and apparently so is violence, according to the Huffington Post. So I just did a live stream on my Facebook channel about gaslighting, and then this article from the Huffington Post comes across my stream, my feed, minutes after I finished the live stream. So let's dive right on into this article entitled "Proud Boys Outnumbered by Anti-Fascists Get Police Escort After 30-Minute Rally." Yeah, why was that? Now, I haven't read this whole thing all the way through. I've just given it a quick breeze through, so excuse me if I eat some words while I do this on the fly. Portland, Oregon. A few hundred fascists once again invaded Portland. Do you see right there? They don't even say that, hey, they don't even say that it's the Proud Boys who happen to be fascists. They just bam, right to fascists. Don't even mention their name. Yeah. So already we're basically gaslighting. Honey, no, honey. The gas lights aren't being dimmed. You're just a fascist. For a much anticipated rally Saturday, but this time we're mostly deprived of that violent spectacle they crave, which they don't crave, trust me, as a much larger group of anti-fascists made them know they weren't welcome in the city. Yes, with a violent spectacle. The fascists belong to far-right groups including the Proud Boys. Well, far-right doesn't necessarily mean fascist. Patriot Prayer, and the Three Percenters. And whereas at previous Portland rallies these groups have often confronted and attacked anti-fascist protesters in retaliation to the violence instigated upon them, that would be what we would call, you know what, I don't even need to say it. What would we call that when violence is instigated upon you and you retaliate to preserve your own existence? This time they were barely given the chance to do so. Yes, because they violently attacked them before they had the chance to even get off the bus. Upon arriving at Tom McCall Waterfront Park around 11 a.m. Saturday, they were kept separated from their foes by concrete barriers and the failings of police, which they wouldn't need if Antifa wouldn't engage in terrorism. The fascists ambled about. Well, which ones are the fascists? The ones that are actually engaging in violence or the ones that are ambling about? This is gaslighting, folks. Singing the national anthem. Oh my God, that incredibly racist and violent thing that we do called singing. And chanting USA. Yeah, because screw this country. Yeah, that's a real positive attitude to have. Which one is the fascist? The one that is totally in favor of the right for a country to exist, or the one that wants to destroy it in a violent means? For a mere 30 minutes before deciding it was time to leave. Oh my God, they were singing the national anthem and chanting USA. Holy cow, it's the Olympics all over again. An accommodating Portland Police Bureau, which has been criticized for siding with and sometimes maintaining friendly relationship with such far-right extremists, or like every time Antifa shows up, standing down entirely and openly promoting their actual violence, like the last time this happened in Portland, then escorted them to the Hawthorne Bridge, which was closed off to the rest of the city's residents, for a happy march across the Willamette River. Those fascists that want to walk across a river. It was a striking scene. The same group of out-of-town fascists that have terrorized people. Oh, you mean they came across your borders? I thought we were all about open borders. The same group of out-of-town fascists that have terrorized people here for years with violence? How about the other group that's terrorizing people with violence and has been actually labeled a terrorist group? Given free reign over a city bridge. Yeah, to walk on. Oh my God. On their way back from an unpermitted rally in a public park after weeks of threatening to harm and kill local anti-fascists. Oh, a positive claim that they're not going to evidence. But the police department's decision nevertheless may have prevented bloodshed, instigated by Antifa, as it largely stopped fascists from crossing paths with their enemies peacefully, and whose enemies would have then violently attacked them. Quote, "We did not show preferential treatment, but rather facilitated a de-escalation of political conflict," end quote. Right, because it had already gotten violent. Because of the violence instigated by Antifa. There were concerns, after all, that this rally would be Portland's most violent since President Donald Trump took office. Because of Antifa. Are we recognizing a theme here? Is there something that you might call somebody who in constantly for political gain institutes violence? Portland officials have for years allowed the Proud Boys and their buddies in the Washington state-based extremist faction Patriot Prayer to hold, quote, free speech, end quote, gatherings here that have served as nothing more than thinly veiled excuses to fight leftists in the city streets, or to criticize them and be prepared when the leftists attack them first to defend themselves. But the messaging leading up to this particular rally carried an air of vengeance. Proud Boys billed it as direct action against anti-fascists in response to an incident at a June rally that left far-right blogger Andy No with a black eye. Oh my God, he is not far-right. And by the way, the black eye was not the limit of the extent of his injuries. You should probably talk to Andy No or his neurologist over the long-term damage you caused to his brain. Also, damn their speech. Damn their direct action against the anti-fascists and their unbelievably violent words? Something about sticks, stones, and words not hurting? Although bloody faces have become the norm at these rallies, No's injuries quickly made him into a cause célèbre among the far right. No, among every honest journalist, which is eager to depict anti-fascism, no, Antifa, as a violent movement because it is. In fact, the whole point of this article's existence is because of their violence. Right, the Proud Boys didn't get to even get off the bus because the violence was instituted before they even got off the bus. Worthy of government repression. Early Saturday morning before the rally, the Proud Boys received a big endorsement for their cause. Major consideration is being given to naming Antifa an organization of terror, the president tweeted. Perhaps because they are. Portland is being watched very closely. Hopefully the mayor will be able to properly do his job, as in allowing the police to police his city. Antifa is a blanket term that refers to a decentralized network of leftists, although the network is organized, as has been already evidenced by every other media outlet on YouTube, and I don't even need to go into. Anti-fascist organizations, some of whose members wear masks and dress in all black at political rallies and engage in violence. Hours after the president's tweet, over 1,000 anti-fascist protesters gathered at Tom McCall Waterfront Park to hold a rally of their own, a violent one, and which proves the damn point. Well done, President Trump. One of their stated goals ahead of the rally was to destigmatize the word Antifa itself. Well, I would suggest engaging in violence would probably not be a successful way to do that. Which right-wing figures in media outlets like Fox News, well, what's the other right-wing media outlet since you've pluralized that word, have turned into a scare word. Popular mobilization, or pop mob. I can't help but laugh. Pop mob. Oh, God. A coalition of leftist groups, a mob, if you will, that organized the counter-protest, distributed flyers in Portland this week that stated, "If you oppose racism, white supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, and the rest of these buzzwords that don't mean anything anymore, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and xenophobic ultranationalist ideologies of the far right, and our current administration," because we can't include any tweet or any statement that doesn't involve calling the Trump a racist, a homophobe, a misogynist, an Islamophobe, blah, blah, blah. We should call him a wolf and cry wolf whenever he shows up. Guess what that'll do? You are an everyday anti-fascist. This is ridiculous. So, since they don't understand nuance, it is okay to be opposed to the notion of fascism and not consider yourself a member of a violent group. If you are not a fascist, then you are Antifa, it continued. And if you are Antifa, you don't understand nuance, and you don't understand neutral positions, and you don't understand the phrase mutually exclusive conditions. One anti-fascist in the crowd Saturday was a 47-year-old beta male cuck. I mean, we can edit that out, right? Office administrator named Shane. He held a sign reading, "Say her name," next to a photo of Heather Heyer, the counter-protester murdered by a neo-Nazi at 2017's Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Yeah, so that Unite the Right rally that Gavin McInnes specifically said that he denounced? Yeah, that he specifically asked his members not to attend? Yeah, that one? You mean the one where we can't seem to get beyond that and talk about any of the other ridiculously violent riots that Antifa has instigated? Yeah, I realize somebody died, of course. And of course that's a tragedy. But we're actually calling it a tragedy. And the right is actually separating themselves from that type of violence and those people that instigated that violence. The left isn't. If we ignore fascism, it emboldens fascism. Actually, since you keep considering them trolls and treating them like trolls, I would say ignoring a troll and not giving it the attention it craves is what's going to starve the troll. And we must confront fascism with all necessary force. And since anyone who's to the right of Mao is a fascist, murder them all! Yay, genocide! Even if that just means showing up and saying, "You're not welcome here," Shane told the Huffington Post. Well, it's too bad that they didn't stop there. As the Proud Boys and other far-right groups marched across the Hawthorne Bridge, Proud Boys leader and former InfoWars conspiracy theorist Joe Biggs, who in recent weeks made explicit calls to violence against anti-fascists, I'm sure, threatened to come back to Portland again. Oh no, he was going to come to Portland. That freedom of travel. Yeah, you want to grant it to people who are crossing our national border illegally, but U.S. citizens who are going from one state to another or one town to another, we don't like them. That's a principled argument, I'm sure. Not until Mayor Ted Wheeler, Democrat, rids the city of Antifa, the Florida-based Biggs told his followers, would the Proud Boys stop coming to Portland. Right, because we want to get rid of criminals in our ranks. And until you get rid of these criminals, we're going to do the thing that is going to reveal their criminality and their violent tendencies. Who was somebody in India who did something like that once? When Biggs and his crew finally exited the bridge onto the streets of Portland, they were greeted warmly by members of the American Guard, a group of the Anti-Defamation League, which has so much credibility, has described as hardcore white supremacists. Yeah, you see what happens with this gaslighting? I just roll my eyes because the ADL is so creditworthy. I roll my eyes because when you say the Anti-Defamation League has described them as hardcore white supremacists, well, you've gaslighted that word, and that was so much that I just don't believe you. I just don't care. The Proud Boys returned the love, shaking hands with and chatting with the American Guard members. Guilt by association. Good thing. Oh, and look at that. We have video of people shaking hands. Yes, because, again, guilt by association. Good thing. Civil dialogue. They all then posed for a group photo. 4 more years, they chanted in support of Trump. Well, imagine if Bernie was elected and they had shouted 4 more years of Bernie. Oh my God, what terrorists they would be. Eventually they all dispersed, some in cars and buses, others on foot. As they scattered across the city, HuffPost reporters witnessed isolated, intermittent confrontation and flashes of violence, instigated by... As a lightly armored school bus carrying smack-talking... trigger warning! Smack-talking American Guard members passed by some anti-fascists. Video appears to show a guardsman charging out of the bus with a hammer. An anti-fascist snatched the hammer from the man's hands. You don't have that video, do you? It's not embedded into this article like other videos are. I wonder why that is. Because I've seen the video, and it doesn't exactly paint the picture I think you'd like it to paint. In the ensuing melee, instigated by Antifa, HuffPost witnessed anti-fascists break some windows on the bus. At another point in the day, John Turano, a Portland rally regular who dresses in gladiator gear specifically to fight anti-fascists, repeatedly swung at protesters despite being overwhelmingly outnumbered and was shoved to the ground and then chased away by the screaming mob. Crowd, who I'm sure didn't instigate the violence. Patriot Prayer leader Joey Gibson, who was among 6 right-wingers arrested this month for their roles in the past Portland riots. You don't want to talk about the left-wingers who were arrested in the Portland riots? It's a lot more than 6. Strolled slowly around Old Town as anti-fascist protesters followed, chanting, "Nazis go home." So it's okay when you do it, but when Trump says to go home, principled, aren't we? At one point, when Gibson stopped to speak to a crowd of people, a woman parked on a nearby motorcycle repeatedly revved her engine in an attempt to drown out Gibson's voice. Oh my God, those racists, revving motorcycle engines and being noisy. Police rushed the woman, and when she refused to stop revving her engines, ripped her from the bike and cuffed her. Eventually, Gibson hopped into a friend's Subaru and drove away. Throughout the afternoon, Portland police, as is their wont, chased anti-fascists around town. Chased violent rioters around town, which is not their wont, believe me, based on what I've seen in previous riots. At various points, ordering the activists off the streets. Whose streets? Our streets, the protesters chanted back. So you seem to be complaining, Huffington Post, that the Proud Boys didn't have a permit to protest in a public park, but seem to be totally in support of people doing this in a road where 4,000-pound chunks of steel driving 30 miles an hour tend to drive? Yeah, again, we're principled here at the Huffington Post. Police said they arrested 13 people on Saturday, though it's unclear how many of those were arrested were anti-fascists. And who cares, because what we care about is how many of them were violent. Ultimately, though, counter-protesters Saturday felt victorious. It's amazing what mob violence and mob rule can do. They'd amassed a giant anti-fascist coalition. It's not a mob, even though they want to call it a mob, a pop mob, not a mob, which can be mobilized to oppose future fascist rallies. And they developed new strategies. Many counter-protesters wore costumes to the rally. There was a person dressed as a unicorn and a brass band dressed as bananas. It was a tactic a pop mob organizer... I didn't say mob. I swear I didn't say mob. Organizer told HuffPost, meant to disrupt the toxic masculinity riot porn. Oh my God. You see, folks, what happens is when you water down these words to mean nothing and blanket everybody with them, and that's how you water them down to mean nothing, right? If my ordering a cheeseburger at the drive-thru is suddenly racist, well then why do I care about racism, and what's the difference between it existing and not existing? Meant to disrupt the toxic masculinity riot porn the Proud Boys produce after these rallies for propaganda purposes. You mean the video they shoot and post unedited, or at least attempt to post unedited, but wind up having those videos getting taken down because they're not in Bernie Sanders land and they don't fit the narrative? Whatever videos the Proud Boys might post from the day's events, there'd be honesty, for one. For example, an anti-fascist dressed as a poop emoji in the background. I hate to laugh in the middle of these articles which are trying so hard to take themselves seriously, but come on, it's a joke. We keep saying how you guys don't know how to take a joke on the left. I'm the one laughing. You are the ones taking offense to this poop joke. I mean, come on. The social pressure and evolving diverse and incredibly fun tactics of pop mob. The seriousness of the Portland police and the number of city, civic, and business leaders mobilized seems to have taken serious steam out of the white nationalist alt-right protest, which would be the case if it was a white nationalist or alt-right protest. Eric Ward, executive director at the Western States Center, a Portland-based civil rights group, wrote in a statement Saturday evening. "You were an amazing community, Portland, and you showed up this month, and it mattered," Ward continued. "Community and leadership made this happen, and you showed up with a lot of both. Good night from the Rose City." And then there's a link on here at the bottom that says, "Do you have information you want to share with HuffPost? Here's how." Yeah, I think I'd like to share with the HuffPost a link to the movie Gaslight from 1940, which is on YouTube and is in the public domain and is in high def, and you guys can watch it for free and see exactly what gaslighting is. Or since you have an editorial board, and at some point these articles, I'm assuming, go through an editor, you could read your own articles.